Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage CADCA's President and CEO, GP General Barry Price.
Good morning. Good morning. I shared last night a story, a true story that came from Scripture, the book of Matthew and the book of Luke, that talked about the star that the wise men followed to find the Christ child. And that star landed not far from here in Grapevine at Dallas Cowboy Football Stadium. That's where you find the Christ child. Hey, I want to welcome our board members, members of our CAC, our federal partners, our partners and coalitions from 21 nations around the world. Yes, let's give it up for our youth. We have more than 500 of them. Youth, make some noise. And of course, our remarkable coalitions who've come from all over the country and around the world. Let's give it up for our coalitions. I want to welcome our phenomenal CAC members and our trainers, who we couldn't do what we do without our trainers. And so let's hear it for the CACA trainers. And finally, our staff. And last night, the staff and trainers had a karaoke session. And just let me say, I hope there's no film, on that. So a little known fact about me is that I just wrote, produced, and will release in the fall a movie called Interview with the King. And stay tuned on that one. So in my last life, you all know that I was a general officer from the Army. And in that life and in that world that I lived, you brought generals in only on the most complex, couldn't be solved type of challenges. Not that the general would solve the issue, but their sage wisdom and experience provided the general with a framework and with an organizational skills to build a team and orchestrate a process towards a credible solution. Matt Damon's portrayal of General Leslie Groves, the director of the Manhattan Project, in the new movie Oppenheimer, is a great demonstration and illustration of the role that generals play within our armed forces. So I'm going to ask for some audience participation right now. So please stand and remain standing if you've lost a child to overdose or suicide. Stand, please. Please stand if you've lost a parent or a sibling to overdose or suicide. Please stand if you've lost a friend to overdose or suicide. Please stand if you have a family member suffering from substance use disorder. Please stand if you have had to use Narcan or naloxone. Not personally, but use it on somebody else, or if you've seen it used. Please stand if you know someone experimenting with drugs, alcohol, or tobacco. I want you to look around you. Look around you. And you'll notice that almost everyone is standing. Please be seated. So here's my why for that exercise. There's a story associated with everyone under my voice. I mean a true story, not one that's sugar-coated. There's a graphic story that, if told honestly and authentically, could make this syndemic that we're facing possible of solving. Not with political power or with political spin or political speak, but with people power. That's, ladies and gentlemen, our superpower as coalitions. You may notice that we've changed our name to demonstrate our renewed focus on solutions. Hence, we are no longer the Community Anti-Drug Coalitions of America, but now CADCA connotes who we are and what we do. So we are community-based, advocacy-focused, data-driven, coalition-building association. Not of America, but of the world. I'm going to say it one more time because there's going to be a test later, so I need you to have this committed to memory. Say it with me: community-based, advocacy-focused, data-driven, coalition-building association. That's who we are. We start the counteroffensive this week by talking about real solutions, by hearing from real people who've navigated the torrents of addiction, like Ryan Leaf, a phenomenal athlete and gladiator who now dedicates his life to helping others by sharing his improbable journey. And I don't want to take too much from what Pat's going to do, but ladies and gentlemen, Ryan, can you stand, please? Let's give Ryan a hand. Ryan's from Great Falls, Montana. All-American quarterback from Washington State University. Heisman finalist and the #2 overall draft pick for the NFL in his draft class, right behind somebody you may have heard of called Peyton Manning. Ryan, thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you for being willing to share your story with us. And a personal thanks to our board member, Greg Puckett. Greg, where are you? To Greg Puckett for making the introduction. That's what we're about, is networking. So Greg, thank you for that introduction to Ryan in 2022. Tonight at 6 o'clock, we'll host the premiere of Dr. Deborah Gosner-Vinnick's documentary entitled "Attention Must Be Paid: Women Trapped in the Opioid Epidemic," which shows how unevenly the opioid epidemic has impacted women. The screening will occur in this room at 6 o'clock tonight. And yes, Relia, where are you? We will have lickies and chewies. That means we'll have snacks tonight. And that's the last time I'll be able to say lickies and chewies. So I'm probably going to say it 5 times before I finish right here today. We have collectively embraced that each one of us in this room, coupled with everyone we know, must be all in if we're going to solve this problem. So I thank you, all 2,400 of you from 21 countries, including the U.S., for your presence this week. I thank you for your involvement in shaping the content of this week. And I thank you for your emails, your cards, and your letters that give me renewed purpose and hope for the fight. Finally, I'd like to publicly single out just a few people. First, my teammates, Nicole Sands. Is Nicole, you here? And Gonzalo Kadima. Where's Nicole? Where's Gonzalo? Yeah, Nicole had a birthday on Friday and Gonzalo has a birthday tomorrow. Happy birthday to you both. I want to tell you that our director of the Geographic Health Equity Alliance, Andrew Romero, who is usually here, he runs a CDC grant on tobacco and colorectal cancer. Andrew's not here because he and Anna are expecting their first child tomorrow. How about that? Yeah. So I think he's going to have some late nights anyway, doing something different. I want to tell you that our own DJ Pat, where's Pat? That we call Pat Castillo, who has brilliantly led the Institute, which runs the National Coalition Academy, has now expanded her purview. In addition to her role as the Institute Director, Pat is now CADCA's Chief Strategy Officer, and I've charged her to build a Prevention Center of Excellence within CADCA, coming soon to a theater near you. Next, I'd like to reintroduce a superstar in this space who needs no introduction, Janetta Davis-Joyce. Janetta, please stand. Janetta recently joined CADCA as our Vice President of Training and Operations. Janetta, we are honored to have you on Team CADCA. Finally, I want to share a secret with each of you. I need you to lean in closer because this is a secret. And it can't be leaked because I don't want an investigation by the FBI. So this is top secret. Lean in for me. Shh, 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 shh. This is top secret, okay? You ready for it? Are you ready? There's one amongst us who's been in the trenches of this prevention movement from the very creation of CADCA. That's over 30 years. Ms. Suthal. We will formally honor Sue at the Drug-Free Kids campaign dinner in October of this year. And so, Sue, thank you for your 30 years of remarkable service to this movement. So I am now pleased to present CADCA's board chairman, President of the University of Southern Indiana, Dr. Ronald Rochon.
Good morning, everybody. Oh no, I'm standing over here on the side of the stage, and I'm just looking at the sea of people, just humbled. I will tell you as a university president who just experienced the pandemic the way you all did, I took for granted the ability to come together. I will never do that ever again. When we get together to have fellowship, to break bread, to share ideas and share love with each other, it just warms my heart. So good morning, everybody. Good morning. Yeah. I got to tell you, when I was coming in, we had these youth greeters. I felt like I was at the university on orientation day. Yeah. So let me just say this first. To all the students in the room, I need you all to come to the University of Southern Indiana. Be my student. Hey, listen, General Price has scholarship money for you. It is truly an honor, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, fellow community members, it is my profound honor to stand before you today as CADCA's board chair. I am delighted to be part of this movement focused on substance use prevention and the well-being of our communities. As this is my first, but certainly not my last mid-year, I cannot express enough how grateful I am to be surrounded by the passionate individuals and determined leaders like yourselves who are working tirelessly to make a difference in the lives of countless numbers of people all across our globe. As the president of the University of Southern Indiana, I witnessed firsthand the enormous value of community involvement and collaboration. This is our wheelhouse. Seeing young people from across the country and the world come together every day to learn from one another and collaborate on new ideas and new strategies and projects, it leaves me energized, but also leaves me in a position where I'm just wondering what's next to come that is great. In that same light, the ideas and approaches that come out of the work like yours each and every day is the driving force in addressing the pressing challenges that face our nation as we sit here together. Every single day, I'm humbled and honored as I serve as USI's president to be able to let students know that I love them. Students that are on our campus, I'm honored, I'm humbled to be able to serve them each and every day. Much like the coalition work that you all are doing, the people that you are in this very room. The work that you are doing is not easy. In fact, I tell students that you won't merely get a diploma because you want it. You have to work hard for it. You have to achieve it. And this is what mid-year represents. As community members, we watch TV every single day in recent months. Images where we see divisiveness, news reports focused on the negative, conversations around substance use disorders. We see this on a daily basis. But the question that I pose is, how do we counteract this? And we all know that it's through hard work. I believe this work is worthy because you are responsible for the well-being of our nation's communities. The same communities that house universities just like mine all across the nation, full of minds, energy, and understanding that will lead us into an amazing future, taking us to the positive land that we need to be in. This is so vital for our nation. And it's communities that uphold and work to have this opportunity to develop relationships needed, working together to provide and produce a shared goal. When I first joined CADCA's board, I remember hearing about this idea called One CADCA, and it sticks with me today. One CADCA is a true call to action. It emphasizes the power of unity we have within this movement that we all believe in. One team, one vision. It requires participants and leaders like you all to bring us forward. Stakeholders that have like minds and like ideals with a unified focus built on prevention, pillars of advocating, educating, equipping, and empowering our youth, our communities, and our families. I am personally looking forward to this week being over 1,000 first-time attendees at this event. So let's give yourselves a round of applause, please. I thank each and every one of you all for being here, for doing the work that you're doing to provide stable, impactful, caring presence in your communities. You are the difference makers, the leaders that will help bring us together and lead us through substance use and misuse, obstacles we see and face each and every day. In closing, I would tell you when General Price asked the audience to stand with these different variables identified within each of our families and households, I stood here and almost wept, humbled by the reality of what we all face. Please do not take your work lightly. Please do not take your non-negotiable courage lightly. Please do not take the lives that we are honoring lightly. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you on behalf of the entire board of directors for CADCA. And I thank the entire team for what they do. And in closing, let me thank my dear friend of over 30 years, someone I love, I respect, and honor so much, our leader, Dr. General Price. Give him a round of applause, please.
So the accolades on our Mistress of Ceremonies continues to grow. You know that Pat is from true North America, Canada. You know that she doesn't know American basketball, football, baseball, lacrosse, boxing, whatever the sport is, I assure you, Pat doesn't know it. Pat, this is going to get better. Okay. Wait for it. You probably know that Pat has run 2 coalitions and has decades of experience in the trenches, one in Broward County, Florida, and then an emerging coalition, a new coalition she ran in the state of Washington before we poached her and grabbed her from the state of Washington to run the Institute and Training and Operations for CADCA. What you may not know is that we hired Pat to heal our land. This is emotive, compassionate, empathic work that we do. And it shouldn't be handled as a task, which is the way we were doing it. And Pat came in and she has really helped us to transform the culture of CADCA. But let me tell you the latest learning on Pat is that she is a karaoke superstar. She went early, first, and she went often. How many of you have done karaoke before? Yeah, so you know that there's no correlation between being a good singer and being a karaoke superstar. So you figure that out. But ladies and gentlemen, I bring you our Mistress of Ceremonies for today, Pat Castillo.
Good morning. Oh, my heart. I have been looking forward to this for months and months and months, to see all of your faces here. Thank you for coming to Dallas, Texas to be with us this week. We know that this leaving home and with families and friends and communities and dogs and pets for a week is no small undertaking. So we are just so grateful that you are here with us this week. As been mentioned, we have over 1,000 new participants here, first-timers to CADCA. Can I see your hands? If you're a new participant, a new first-timer, please raise your hand high and proud. Thank you. Thank you for coming. That is amazing. A question that we always get from new folks, as well as mostly from new folks, is what makes our mid-year different? And this is what it is. It's the focus. We are here to provide you all with an intensive training experience. So what does that look like? Well, let me share that with you now, just to give you a sense. First, this is the only time that we will get together as a group this week. So take lots of pictures and be here, because we will be using this area for training and other activities, but this is the only time. The rest of the time, we are going to be in sessions. And the sessions, we have a chock-full, loaded number of training sessions. Most of them are 3 hours in length. And why do we do that? Well, it's because you have told us through evaluations, yes, that the longer training sessions, that's where you get your deep dive, and that's where it helps you to learn about the latest prevention science and how you can move that into your practice. You want to hear from diverse coalition leaders from around the country and around the world about what they are doing, how they are addressing their challenges. And of course, as always, to hear from our federal partners about the work that they are doing, because it does impact immediately the work that we do in the community. So it is critical that we hear from our federal partners, and we have many, many of them with us this week, which we are so thankful for. So what does that also look like? Well, on the adult side of the house, we have 86 adult training sessions, the most we've ever had at any mid-year. So we have gone above and beyond, trying to give you the breadth of trainings and opportunities where you can learn to take back to your communities. We have a totally separate youth leadership training opportunity sessions that are going this week too. We have, as it has been mentioned, over 500 youth leaders participating with over 200 of their adult leaders, and you know what I'm going to do. Youth leaders, please stand to be recognized for what you are doing, not only this week, but in your communities. Please stand. All right. Look around, folks. This is our future, right here. This is our future. Thank you. Thank you for being here, because we know it's summer, and y'all could be somewhere else. But you've chosen to be here because you have a passion for your community, for making change, for being better leaders, and for that we are thankful. Our work is done across the world. Many of you may not, or some of you may not have known that. At mid-year, this is our opportunity, and we are blessed to have over 100 people in attendance representing 21 countries, from Latin America right over to the other side of the world, representing 12 countries from Africa, Asia, and Europe. Some have traveled 2 days to be with us, with the longest flight taking more than 30 hours. Oh my gosh, can I have those representatives please stand? Please stand. Our international participants. Please take the opportunity to introduce yourself this week with them, because we all are in this work together. And we have commonalities. We may be in different parts of the world, but we have commonalities. We have a passion to make a difference in our communities, in our country. So please take that opportunities. Okay, so to get us started though this morning, we have what we think are 3 phenomenal speakers that we are going to bring to you this morning, and they are going to share their messages. And we will hear from them shortly. But for now, what we're going to do is I'm going to take a break. You're going to enjoy your breakfast, full service. And then after that, I'll come back and I'll start introducing our three guests for the morning. And then I will finish out with telling you a little bit about what is going to be happening with the week ahead. We've got a jam-packed week. I hope you're ready. Got lots of rest before you got here. So with that, enjoy your breakfast. Everybody, please continue to enjoy your breakfast, but we want to make sure we continue with this morning's plenary sessions because we have three phenomenal speakers that we are going to begin to bring up and share their message with you. Our first speaker is someone very dear to our hearts at CADCA. Anath Ghosh was born in Ann Arbor, Michigan on January 7, 1999. He received his bachelor's degree in economics and earned his commission into the U.S. Army through the United States Military Academy at West Point on May 22nd, 2021. Anath is a newlywed. He married Shweti on October 8th, 2022, and she is a senior staff auditor with Ernst & Young. But as I said, this is a very special occasion for us because Anath did such wonderful work with his coalition and in his community. What he did was bring that to CADCA. And so he is a very accomplished young man, but he was also with us as a CADCA trainer. Here are a few pictures that we got that we went back to the archives and we brought forward that showing his experience with CADCA. We reached out to one of the master trainers, Yvonne Stroman, who is here, yes, Yvonne, who worked with Anath. And she said of him that she fondly remembers him as an inquisitive, insightful, and eager to learn and grow as a youth trainer. And he has taken that into his work as he has gone forward. He was also recognized as an exceptional youth coalition leader at our 2016 CADCA Drug-Free Kids Dinner as an honoree. We are thrilled and honored to have Anath back into our family, CADCA family. Welcome, Anath.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So, as previously mentioned, my name is Anath Ghosh, and I'm currently a first lieutenant in the United States Army working in the Finance Corps. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak with you all today. It is truly an honor. But before I go on, I want to take some time to thank a few people in my life that continue to support me and all the life endeavors that I have coming in my life. My wife, Swati Ghosh, who isn't here today because she's actually packing our home because I'm moving to Washington, D.C. on Friday for my next assignment. My parents, Indira Ghosh and Amitabh Ghosh, and I would be remiss to not thank Major General Price, for without his guidance, I wouldn't be where I am today. Now, when they asked me to speak at CADCA, I was like, uh-oh. What am I going to talk about? I could talk to you about my military career and see maybe try to recruit you into the Army because, you know, that's a great place to be. Or I could take you back in time and talk to you about what I did as a youth leader in my coalition back at home. But before I get into my story, everyone, please give yourselves a round of applause. The work that each and every one of you do on a daily basis is not an easy task and is often thankless. You are the change of tomorrow's world, and everyone here deserves that recognition. So I applaud you. All right, now stick with me as I go through my journey. Every journey has a beginning, and I would like to take you on mine. The journey that brought me standing in front of you today. So let's jump back in time to the year 2011, where the top song was Rolling in the Deep by Adele. Here you could find middle school me, staying after school to attend a meeting with a coalition group called Seriously. Is Seriously in the house today? All right, that's all right. Michigan, you in the house? Excellent. Seriously is a youth prevention and advocacy group that works with local leaders to create a healthier and safe community. Now, did I know that at the time? No. Between you and me, I went to this first meeting because they had free pizza. And what middle school kid says no to free pizza? Little did I know that was going to start a 6-year journey for me that would forever change my life. The meeting begins and we start talking about what Seriously does and the types of things Seriously does for the community. I'm just sitting there eating pizza and listening, thinking to myself, this sounds pretty cool to be a part of. Maybe they have food at all their events. But on a more serious note, what also stood out to me was that there was only one adult in the entire room. Everyone else was either in middle school or high school. Seriously believed in being youth-led and showed every aspect of things, and that showed in every aspect of the things we did. When I was working with Seriously, we focused on prevention from tackling problems such as prescription drug abuse, underage drinking, and adolescent marijuana use. Working with Seriously, we worked with community leaders to come up with a prevention plan. It was then Seriously that introduced me to CADCA, bringing me to my first mid-year in 2013 in Austin, Texas. As I started attending CADCA events, I then soon realized, wow, this is pretty cool. I'm 13 years old and I'm traveling to different states within the country to talk about youth-led prevention. And these events were not only beneficial to me, but my coalition and the community. As I attended more CADCA events, I was then selected to become a youth trainer for CADCA. It was 2015 when I was selected for the National Youth Leader of the Year Award presented by CADCA. I got the opportunity to speak with General Price and General Dean, who previously knew me from other CADCA trainings, and they were asking me how I felt about receiving this award. I looked at them both and said, gentlemen, I really appreciate this award, but I do not think I deserve it. I said this because this award may reflect actions that I did, but those actions were only a small part in a larger outcome. And that outcome was a healthier and safer community. I believe this award is a team award and a reflection of my team's efforts. They both just looked at me for what felt like an eternity. And in my head, I'm like, oh no, what did I say? I must have said something wrong. But then General Bryce looked at me and he said, you do deserve that award because you were a leader when someone called upon you and when your community needed you. This gave me a sign of relief. But then he continued on to say, what's your plan after high school? I hesitated to respond to General Price right away. The reason for this is I wanted to join the Navy. General Price and General Dean are both in the Army, and I didn't want to speak into any upset. You may ask, what's the big deal about joining the Navy? Well, the Army and the Navy have a huge rivalry when it comes to football. So you don't really bring up those two. So if you want to join the Navy, you keep that hush-hush. But what do? I tell them anyway. I want to join the Navy by going to the Naval Academy. Now, they didn't look disappointed, but their tone definitely changed. I'm only semi-joking. They both said, well, I'm sure you will soon want to join the Army. Now, continuing through the rest of my high school career, I continued to work for Seriously on the local level, but then I was working with CADCA on the national and international levels as well. I worked with CADCA on several different aspects, serving on their youth advisory board, such as the Blue Ribbon Advisory Panel, and also was a youth trainer in both their key essentials and advanced courses. It was an awesome journey, and my family was very supportive, because as a high schooler, I would come home, once I got the email, hey, you're attending this training, I would have to go to my mom and dad and be like, hey, Mom, Pops, I'm flying to LA this week to go attend a panel meeting. I need to take a week off of school. And this is when my dad just looked at me and goes, what? No, you're lying. And then I have to show him the email, and then he's like, okay, I'll tag along. He was shocked that I was doing all these different things at the national level. It came time to start applying to service academies, and a part of this process is meeting with your senators and congressional leaders. You have to get nominated by them to go to the service academies. Since I went to the National Forum every year since 8th grade, I actually knew my senators and congressional leaders, and they knew me. I stepped into the interview with my senator at the time, and he's like, "Oh, hi, Anant." And I was like, uh-oh. Since he knew me, I felt like he went a little harder on me. So it's a little toss-up if that was beneficial or not. But nonetheless, the day came and I got nominated to go to all the service academies I applied to. And then a few days later, I got my letter of acceptance to the United States Military Academy at West Point. I guess General Price and General Dean were right. I made the right choice and I joined the Army. Now, I won't go too far in depth on my journey through West Point, because trust me, I can go on and on and on about my 47-month experience at West Point. West Point was one of the most rewarding yet challenging experiences I've ever faced in my life, but it was worth every second that I was there. And if any of you want to go, please feel free to ask me how to get there or what you want to know about it, because I'm happy to talk about it. I'm also happy to discuss my experiences at West Point at any time throughout today. I can confidently say that I made the right choice of joining the Army and not the Navy. CADCA was extremely impactful on my life. You see, CADCA is more than just an advocacy program. It exposes you to so much more, from critical thinking to strategic analysis. You see, when I was here, I got to develop my leadership style. I didn't know it at the time, but it allowed me to explore how I like to work with different teams and organizations. I learned the value of people and the value that each and every one of us bring to our team. Allow me to direct your attention to the screens really quick. Here, you will see team. You see it? Cool. Okay. All of us in this room work on or are part of several different teams. When I was a commander at Fort Cavazos, formerly known as Fort Hood, I knew the decisions I was making was not only impacting the lives of my soldiers, but also the effectiveness of the other units that depended on us. I knew that my team had to be operating at 100% at all times whenever the mission demanded it. Thus, how I broke down a team to my unit was exactly like this. I sat them down in a room and I said, "Ladies and gentlemen, this is a team. Technical, experienced, adaptive, and moral." I'm not going to get into this too much right now, but all the youth in the room, remember this, because there will be a quiz later at the youth opening when I go into this a little bit more. Now, if you narrow down in team, you'll see ME, me, right? There's a me in the team. Here, you bring your morals and your experience. All of us in this room have a story, and we have experiences that benefit the team. Your coalition is a team. Your coalition is a team player for the CADCA team, and the CADCA team is the world's team in stopping drug abuse. So no matter how you look at it, each of the experiences that the individuals in this room have bring exponential value to those around them and quite literally the world. This is your week to let your experiences shine and share with others. Fight for what you believe in, play your role in your community, and be the change you want to see. We all want to see a world that we feel safe to be ourselves in. And truthfully, you are the fighting force for our country and the world in the prevention effort. I ask you that this week you expand your diverse thought. Learn from those around you, because maybe, and just maybe, that could be the life-changing knowledge your community needed. To all the youth in this room, I promise you, I sat in your seat at once, and I was like, it's just another speech. I promise you, your voice matters, and what you do will change the world. Thank you so much for this opportunity to speak with you all today. It has truly been an honor. Each of you are an inspiration in life, and your work will leave a mark for the futures to come. Please have fun this week, enjoy meeting the new people around you, and learn from one another. I will leave you with this one final thought, because the work you do is an impossible mission, but you all can beat it. And I promise you, this is the final thought. Alexander the Great said, "There is nothing impossible to they who try." Again, thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing the impact you all make on this world.
Let's give him another round of applause, please. What an inspiring leader. I have the distinct privilege of introducing another wonderful speaker and a true fan and colleague partner of CADCA. Ambassador Adam Nam was appointed as the Executive Secretary of the Inter-American Drug Abuse Control Commission of the Organization of American States on December 1st, 2016, following a distinguished 30-year career in the U.S. diplomatic service, including serving as U.S. ambassador to Ecuador from 2012 to 2015. Ambassador Nam holds an AB degree in International Relations from Brown University and an MS in National Security Strategy from the National War College of the United States. So for those young people in the room who may be interested in that as your future goal and learning, I'm sure Ambassador Nam would love to speak to you about that learning he had. Married with 2 children, Ambassador Nam speaks Spanish and French, and again, let's take the opportunity to share that knowledge and speak with him, Spanish and French. I think we probably have some of those in the room, speakers. He plays jazz and blues piano. And he also enjoys swimming and tennis, and he's going to give me all kinds of tutoring on that because I know nothing about sports. So with that, Ambassador Nam, welcome to the stage.
Thank you so much, Pat. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for the very warm and enthusiastic introduction. It's a real pleasure to be here at CADCA's 22nd Annual Mid-Year Training Institute. I want to give a big thank you. He's getting a lot of thanks this morning to my friend and former National War College classmate, General Barry Price. Thank you so much for having me. And to all of you in the audience, what an honor, what a true honor it is to be with you today at this premier event. I'm looking out on a sea of people, 2,300 people, I understand. Wow. Some of you have been here before. I know about almost half of us are new to this event, 1,000 I heard. This is a heck of an event. And all of you are here because you want to help others. Think about that. All of you are here because you want to help others. I salute you. Before I go further, I want to extend to all of you a warm hello from Luis Almagro, the Secretary General of the Organization of American States. That is the organization where I work. The OAS, as it is more commonly known, is like a mini United Nations for the countries of the Western Hemisphere, from Canada all the way up north, way down to Argentina in the south. Committed to democracy, human rights, development, and security in the Americas. Our headquarters are in Washington, D.C., And we were founded in 1948, which means we are celebrating our 75th anniversary this year. Thankfully, I am not celebrating my 75th anniversary this year. I serve as Executive Secretary of the Inter-American Drug Abuse Control Commission, known by its initials in Spanish, CICAD, C-I-C-A-D. So not CADCA, but another 5-letter acronym that begins with C, CICAD. CICAD is the consultative and advisory body of the Organization of American States on the drug issue. We're based, as I said, in Washington, with consultants working with us around the globe. We serve as a forum for our member states to discuss and find solutions to the drug problem, and we provide them with technical assistance to increase their capacity to counter drug-related challenges. We also work closely with other international organizations like the United Nations and with civil society. Through CICAD, the member states of the OAS have put themselves in the vanguard of understanding and addressing the drug problem, using an evidence-based approach. I know that's so important to CADCA. It's important to us too, an evidence-based approach, focusing on public health, human rights, and gender equity. CICAD operates according to the OAS Hemispheric Drug Strategy and its corresponding Plan of Action on Drugs, which was approved. Both documents were approved by member state consensus. And the principles that I just mentioned, public health, human rights, gender equity, feature prominently in both documents. I'll put up an organizational chart of CICAD, which will give you a better idea of what we do. As you can see, we cover many aspects of the drug problem, which is multidimensional. Our Inter-American Observatory on Drugs, there on the left side of the org chart, issues reports on drug use and supply and helps national drug observatories around the hemisphere in our member states do the same. We've put out a couple of major reports in the last few years on drug consumption and drug supply. Our observatory also trains personnel from OAS member states so that they can improve their data collection efforts at the national level. As the saying goes, you can't solve a problem until you understand the scope of the problem. And the work done by our Inter-American Observatory on Drugs helps us understand the drug problem. CICAD's multilateral evaluation mechanism is a peer review process whereby experts from OAS countries evaluate other member states' drug policies and the execution of those policies. National reports are issued, as well as hemispheric briefs on demand reduction, supply reduction, and related topics. The multilateral evaluation mechanism is the only evaluation tool of its kind in the world, and we are very proud of that. Not Europe, not Africa, not Asia, just the Americas has that tool. Thank you. Our supply reduction unit runs 2 counter-narcotics intelligence training schools for law enforcement. One in Bogota, Colombia. Anybody here from Colombia? Okay, and one in Port of Spain, Trinidad and Tobago. Anybody here from Trinidad and Tobago? The supply reduction unit also promotes gender equity and counter-drug police forces through a program that has been operational for the past 5 years. CICAD's demand reduction unit trains trainers who deliver courses on prevention and treatment, leads a group of Western Hemisphere universities that help formulate anti-drug curricula, and works with national chapters of the International Society of Substance Use Professionals. I'm pleased and proud to tell you that our demand reduction unit is also working with CADCA in a couple of ways. First, we are coordinating what is called a demonstration project in a city called Pereira. That's a medium-sized city in Colombia. This initiative, funded by the U.S. Department of State's Bureau of International Narcotics and Law Enforcement Affairs, represented here today, focuses on greater collaboration between community groups and other sectors to develop the necessary social capital to address pressing issues through community mobilization. CADCA is an important partner in that endeavor. Second, we will soon prepare a report on the implementation of CADCA's community coalitions model in countries around the globe. This report will identify successes and lessons learned, enabling the CADCA model to benefit more people. And that's what it's all about, benefiting more people. Drug use prevention is a high priority for our work at CCAD. The consequences of substance use disorders ripple through families and communities, as many of you know. Because educating young people about the dangers of drug dependence is so very important, CCAD will hold a youth forum next month for young people from the Caribbean, and another youth forum next year for young people from Latin America. This is very much in parallel to CADCA's Youth Leaders Program, very much in parallel. These two forums will help youth leaders of the Americas spread messages of drug prevention in their local communities, becoming powerful agents of change. I'm pleased to be joined here in Dallas by my colleague from CCAD's Demand Reduction Unit, Dr. Jose Luis Vasquez, who's sitting here right up front. Jose, why don't you stand up? CCAD's Institutional Strengthening Unit. There's the Drug Youth Forum. There we go. That's the poster for our upcoming Drug Youth Forum that's going to be in the Bahamas in a couple of weeks. Our Institutional Strengthening Unit there on the right side of the organization chart, thank you, helps OAS member states formulate drug policies and strategies, assists them with alternative development efforts, such as substituting legal crops for illicit drug crops, and promotes alternatives to incarceration. Let me speak for a few minutes on alternatives to incarceration, otherwise known as therapeutic justice. Drug treatment courts, many of you may be familiar. They're an important model of alternatives to incarceration, and they've been around since 1989. They were started in Miami during the crack cocaine epidemic of that era. There are now more than 4,000 drug treatment courts here in the United States, many in Canada, and more in other countries of the Americas. I have seen drug treatment courts in action as recently here as 6 weeks ago in Miami, and know they produce results, helping minor drug offenders avoid prison time, helping them recover from drug dependence, and reducing prison overcrowding in the process. I told you that there are drug treatment courts in other countries in the Americas. Let me show you a couple of maps. The map on the left shows in blue the 5 countries, only 5 countries in the Americas that had drug treatment courts in 2010. the US, Canada, Mexico, Jamaica, and Chile. The map on the right shows the enormous growth of drug treatment courts in the Americas. There are now 14 countries in the Americas with drug treatment courts, and 3 more, shown in green, are exploring this important tool to help those with drug dependence. I'm proud to say CCAD is out front in promoting drug treatment courts and other alternatives to incarceration models throughout the Western Hemisphere. This is one of our most important initiatives, one that changes lives for the better throughout the Americas. Drug treatment courts are testament to how a common sense idea, treating drug-dependent offenders, can break them out of the cycle of dependence and criminal recidivism, how that can turn into a movement backed by some of the most extensive and robust research in the criminal justice world. You might ask, what about the quality of the demand reduction treatment programs? If you're sentencing people to treatment, how can you ensure quality? Well, I'm going to point again to Dr. Jose Luis Vasquez. Dr. Vasquez is responsible for making sure that treatment programs are up to standards. Wherever we implement drug treatment courts, or we don't do it, we've got to make sure the back end is there, the treatment is sufficient before we'll help a country establish a drug treatment court. Before closing, I want to share with you that just 3 weeks ago, I had the privilege of visiting the San Patrignano therapeutic community in Italy. Some of you may have heard, let me see a show of hands. Has anybody heard of the San Patrignano therapeutic community in Italy? Okay, well, I'm going to educate you. It's a town unto itself with up to 1,000 residents under treatment at any given time. It's near Rimini, Italy, for those of you that know Italy. It has an enormous dining hall, about this size, craft shops that turn out first-rate leather products and other goods, and high-end restaurants that serve the general public. CCAD is partnering with the San Patrignano community on a project assisting countries of the Americas with social integration models. Social integration models. How do you get back into society after you've recovered from dependence? My takeaway from visiting San Patrignano is that 2 elements are critical to lasting treatment of drug dependency. First, time. The typical stay for a resident at San Patrignano is 2 or 3 years, not months, but years. Second, community. There is no substitute for going through drug treatment programs with others. Nothing substitutes for being with your peers. Communities are always vital, which is what makes a gathering like this CADCA event, so valuable. It has been my honor and pleasure to have spent these last minutes providing you with a quick tour around some of the areas of CCAD's programming. For a deeper dive, I encourage you to visit our website, shown here on screen, and to follow us on Twitter. I wish all of you a wonderful week, and again, congratulate you on the truly important work that you do. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ambassador Nam. Our next speaker is a voice for the recovery community. Ryan Leaf has a very, very noble and important mission, and that is to reach anyone who is in need of hope. He hopes to inspire others to begin their road to recovery, to see that happiness and health can always be achieved. He describes himself as a grateful human being. With that, I give you Ryan Leaf.
When you're little, you dream you can do anything. Some dream they want to be a doctor, an astronaut, maybe a cowboy. My dream was to be a professional athlete. So how did I get here?
Here's a throw by Leaf, an open guy. Look at that play.
I remember the day when I decided to go to Washington State. It was the greatest 4 years of my life. I played in the biggest games. I even played in the granddaddy of them all, the Rose Bowl. I was on top of the world. I was meeting my heroes
Ryan Leaf,
on the cover of magazines.
the second choice in the draft, the San Diego
The second
Chargers.
player picked in the 1998 NFL Draft.
University, Ryan Leaf.
Then one day, I started to lose control.
Backside pressure and goes down hard. Time flings it deep. Pass intercepted.
That dream slowly started to slip away.
What about that guy Ryan Leaf from Washington State? He's got to be right.
Troubled former quarterback Ryan Leaf has been arrested.
Leaf was accused of burglary and drug activity. In a plea deal, he pled guilty to the charges.
Former NFL quarterback Ryan Leaf was arrested Friday in his Montana hometown.
Ryan Leaf has been arrested for the second time in just 4 days. This is Leaf's latest mugshot.
I'm both humiliated and embarrassed with the situation, not only for myself, especially for my family.
Quarterback Ryan Leaf was sentenced to 10 years of probation.
The strange story of Ryan Leaf has taken another turn
with a plea deal by customs agents.
His career was the epitome of a bust.
Ryan Leaf has been arrested.
Leaf was indicted in May in Canyon, Texas.
What was I supposed to do? Just give up? Today I try to use that nightmare to benefit others. My life's purpose is much clearer when I just work to help. The truth, even when it's hard, sets people free. Change is one of the few constants in life. The question is, are you changing for the better? I'm Ryan Leaf, and I'm just like you. When you're little, you dream you can do anything.
So dramatic. I tend to be more common with being called names like bust, junkie, failure, felon, criminal. I'm more accustomed to that. It almost became a way of, yeah, that's about right. And then, when you have a major general from the armed forces ask you to stand and be recognized in front of a room full of 2,400 people, my immediate reaction is to look at my feet. Because like I said, that sounds foreign. Why does it sound foreign? It's because the stigma around mental illness and substance abuse has been indoctrinated in this society. As far back as probably the early 80s, when the war on drugs became such a symbol for everybody to see and hear. No one looked at the evidence, no one looked at the science and didn't realize that it was an addiction. It was a disease, and therefore, everything that has happened after that has been lumped into this idea of choice. And so growing up where I did, in a small town in Montana, where I never saw anybody look at another person who had an addiction issue as someone who needs medical assistance, but rather somebody who is wrong, who is bad. And the shaming began. And it's been a constant in our society for over the last 30, 40 years around someone who is in need of treatment, someone who is dealing with a mental health disorder, being ostracized and put to the side rather than being given the actual help, the actual training that they need. I did not know anything about it. Like I said, small town kid from the state of Montana. I am the only Montanan who's ever been drafted in the first round of the NFL draft. There are more first-round draft picks in the Manning family than the whole state of Montana ever, okay? So there's a uniqueness that I thought. I love to compete. That's all I ever wanted to do. How do you get from Montana to the highest possible level of your sport? Well, you have a wonderful father, two-tour Vietnam veteran who came home and got spit on and raised 3 boys and built a business and was filled with integrity and character. That's how you develop this work ethic. I also think whatever happens to you down the line, you become a caricature of how everybody portrays that. You don't see the things that go on behind the scenes. The work that I put into, the amount of time and sacrifice my family made to get me to where I needed to get to. The best decision I ever made was to go to Washington State. Go Cougs, I've heard that a few times in here tonight. Best decision I ever made. Mike Price may have been a secondary father to me. He taught me how to play the position of quarterback. We got to something that hadn't been done since 1931 at Washington State, and that was to go to a Rose Bowl and play for a national championship. I was a Heisman Trophy finalist. That's never happened at Washington State before. All of these things, the first of everything, the first of this, and the idea that the way I reconciled how others people tried to label me was to be better than everybody else. And I don't just mean as an athlete. I had to be better than everybody else as a human being. And by playing this sport, that made me more important. So this inflated ego, the idea of being a drug addict long before I ever took a drug, because of course I know how we behave. That's how I was behaving. It was an all-in, never a gray area. Either I was a failure or I was a success, and I was going to be a success, period. There wasn't anybody else that had the drive that I did. And I accomplished all of that. Now, did I fail? Yes, I failed constantly, but I just didn't see it. And I also didn't see the care that was being taken by bringing me along. But when I did finally fail on the highest possible level, I was not equipped to deal with it because of the stigma. Now, I never used a drug. I didn't drink until my 18th birthday. Those things were not associated with my advancement to be successful. In fact, I looked at those that did that type of thing as morally bankrupt people. That made me, again, more important than any of you. And now, I was in a moment where I was dealing with real mental health issues, and I did not see that as something that I could be open or transparent about because of said stigma. I'd never seen anybody growing up in the cowboy culture of Montana, the locker rooms, in college in the NFL, I'd never seen another man actually step forward and go, I'm really hurting here. Can you help me? And if you hadn't seen it, or even seen it portrayed in books or movies or TV, how are you supposed to do it? I didn't know how to. I saw it as weakness. I saw it as a shaming thing that had been placed upon me since I was a little kid and we watched it go by. So how did I deal with it? Well, I dealt with it the only way I knew how, and that was by myself. I didn't seek professional help when it came to the mental health side of things. I didn't understand what I was trying to do to medically treat it myself. And one night in Las Vegas, after what I had wanted to be was a 20-year-long career of playing in the NFL, only ended up being a 5-year career. When I walked out of that institution, I was seen as one of the largest failures ever to go through the NFL because of the expectations that existed for me and how I essentially crashed and burned at the highest level when the dawn of the internet became apparent, and drafted alongside arguably the greatest quarterback to ever play in Peyton Manning. All of those things, those convolutions, come together in this one place. I'm in Las Vegas, and I'm at a fight, and I always have this moment where I know that people are going to recognize me, and I walk into a room like that, and I go, please don't recognize me, please don't recognize me. And then like 15 minutes later, I'm like, why the hell isn't anybody recognizing me, okay? That is the narcissism that I am. It always had to be about me. And that night, for whatever reason, they were announcing the celebrities in the audience, and they announced, Charles Barkley and Tiger Woods, and the audience applauded, and they announced my name, and the whole MGM Grand just booed and hissed. And it's not like that hadn't happened before, okay? You walk into an opposing team stadium, you get booed, you get heckled, but you're almost emboldened, empowered. You got your shoulder pads on, your helmet, you're protected, and it almost makes you feel good about it, especially walking into Husky Stadium and just beating the hell out of them. That is maybe the best feeling in the whole world. Well, this wasn't, okay? In that moment, I felt all of the less than, all of the judgment, all of the shame that you can imagine. It wasn't that they were just saying you're a bad football player. What they were telling me and what my addict mind heard was you are an awful human being. And that was the stigma, and it continues to be that way. As much as we've changed, and as much of you in this audience continue to try to be part of the solution and change that narrative and change that stigma, it still exists in the general population. It's an easier form to look at somebody who is willing to make what they assume is a choice and not any sort of science or brain chemistry as a flawed human being. And yes, we all are. We are all flawed human beings trying to be better every single day. But that moment, I just heard all of that, and it weighed on me immensely. And so instead of seeking any sort of help, that night, my doctor of choice was an acquaintance of mine who introduced me to Vicodin. And it was the answer. I think I had been searching for an ability to numb whatever I was feeling. All the failure, all the judgment, all that fear, all those things that I had growing up was now monumentally placed at my feet, and I did not know how to deal with it in a healthy, positive way. So I accepted this medication. I mixed it with the alcohol I was drinking that night. I would walk into parties where there were Hall of Famers, there were Super Bowl champs, where I always felt less than and judged, all of those things. And I didn't feel any of it. And I had just been searching for that. I had my answer. It was. My brain says, don't feel anything. That's how it works. And this was the answer. And I found it. And for the next 8 years of my life, it was chasing that, just chasing that. Going to doctors, showing them x-rays. I got beat up for a living, manipulating doctors who have not had the training and understanding around addiction because it's just not taught in medical school. They don't see and understand drug-seeking behavior. All of those things. Until finally, because this is how, my story's not unique, okay, at all. Any of you who stood up, who have family members or who know someone who has had a substance abuse issue, if they stood up here on this stage and told you their story, it would be almost identical to mine. There are a few outliers, of course, when you add the NFL and all of those things to it. But that is the truth. We're no different. We are the flawed human beings who are trying to be better every single day and struggle mightily at it, hiding what we're going through because of that stigma and the way that people view us. And so, because one, I'm 6'7" and 270 pounds, I'm not a good burglar. I got found out pretty quick. Also, it was my hometown where I'm supposed to be the hero and people know me. When they bring a photo lineup out to the family that saw this 6'7", 270-pound guy walking out of their house, go, was this him? And like, yeah, that's him. Well, how do you know? It's Ryan Leaf. I tell people, if you're from Great Falls, I was probably in your house from somewhere between 2005 and 2010. It's not a huge community, but I work hard. There were all those nights that I would look into the mirror and I knew who I was. Right? I wasn't in denial to myself. I saw who I saw in the mirror, and I saw this mentally ill junkie. And I clamored for help every single night. Somebody, please help me. I couldn't do it to the people I loved. I couldn't do it publicly because of the shame that came with it and how I absorbed that. Now, that may have been a projection on my part. I understand that. But the stigma attached to what I was going through was so much, and I carried it so much that I was unwilling to tell anybody what I was dealing with and ask for help. Luckily for me, the sheriff's department volunteered and offered to help me. They showed up at my doorstep on March 30th, 2012. They arrested me and they ultimately saved my life. Now, I didn't view it that way for the longest time. I would spend about 80 days in solitary confinement to start out. The worst possible place you can be, anybody, ever, is in my brain for 80 days by itself, okay? I don't recommend it now, ever, or before, okay? That's where I was. Nothing got better. I went to prison and was sentenced to 7 years in a Montana State penitentiary. The idea that I would be involved with law enforcement, it never even was a thought. But here I was. And this would really put to the test on whether I was a drug addict long before I ever took a drug, because the substance was taken away from me. The substance was never the problem. I was the problem. I had the disease, and I never had it diagnosed, and therefore I never had it treated. So I was left to my own devices, and I don't make proper choices. For someone who's made it to the very highest level, who became a millionaire at 21, you'd think you would make proper choices. There's arrested development when you're a special athlete. You get placed on a pedestal. You are not held to the same type of consequences as others. And therefore, your emotionality, your coping skills, those are all arrested, probably around 13 years old for me. So here I was, in the worst possible place you can imagine, with some of the worst possible people. My first roommate had murdered his entire family, and I remember laying there in bed on the top bunk going, this guy's gonna kill me in my sleep. I know it. I sleep like a baby now, because if you can learn how to sleep with a murderer below you, you can probably sleep anywhere, and that is the darndest truth, I tell you. Nothing changed for about 26 of the 32 months I spent in prison. Nothing. I was more miserable. I was more angry. I was more judgmental, fearful, all of the things that go into the definition of a drug addict and someone who's dealing with mental health issues. And luckily for me, again, my higher power just, said, Ryan, you don't get it. I'm going to, again, send somebody to help save your life. And he sent me my roommate. He was an Afghan-Iraqi war veteran who had done something I think most people have probably done in their lives at some point, and that's drive drunk one night. In this case, he killed somebody. He'd spent his last 8 years there, and he was not resolute with that definition of him. He made amends for what he had done. He tried to better himself every single day, and I guess he had been around me long enough where he felt comfortable enough to confront me, and he did. And he said I had my head buried in the sand. He said I didn't understand the value that I had, not only for the men in there, but for when you get out, Ryan, because you're going to get out at some point. I may not. And so he suggested we go down to the prison library and help prisoners learn how to read who didn't know how to read. And that was the first moment. Now, I had many of those come to Jesus moments where people tried to help me, mentors, family, coaches, everybody. And I just pushed them away because I'd never seen what that can look like. I can't tell you why I went. Maybe because the substance had been out of my system for 26 months, but I did. I went begrudgingly. I still remember walking down the prison hallway, like metaphorically kicking rocks in a red jumpsuit, thinking, this is stupid. How is this going to help me? Doesn't he know how important I am? Now, the irony of all that is the guy in the red jumpsuit in a prison hallway still thinks he's important. I walked into that room, and there's this man, a 50-year-old man in the worst possible place you can imagine, where vulnerability and transparency gets you hurt. You don't do it. Walk up to me and say those words that I had never heard before. I don't know how to read, Ryan. Can you help me? My first instinct was, what's wrong with this person? But I did, and I came back, and I came back, and I came back, and a month passes, and I'm sleeping better, and I'm more personable, and I'm talking to my family. And what I had come to realize is that I was being of service to another human being for the first time in my life. I used to think what I did on Saturdays and Sundays was me being of service to everybody. And that is, how foolish is that? Football's an institution in our country, yes, I get it. But it's a silly game. This was faced with the real events you can as a human being. And so that changed. So for the final 5 months of my stay in prison, I made it about other people. And what's ironic about all that is when you make it about other people, your life gets better. I used to think it always had to be about me for my life to get better. And so when I walked out, there was nothing. I had no one. Luckily, my parents, God bless them, unconditionally have loved their eldest son through everything. They were there outside that prison door when I walked out. But I had nothing, okay? I was broke. I couldn't rub 2 pennies together. My credit score was like 500. No one was offering me a job. No one wanted to be around me. I work for the Disney Corporation now, if you can believe that. Like Mickey Mouse wasn't standing outside that prison and going, hey, Ryan, come work for me. I started doing that bit last year, and my wife heard it for the first time, and she said, don't you ever do that again. And now, when I do it, it kills every single time, and I make sure when I get home that I make it very clear to her that it killed once again. I had nothing, but I had hope. I didn't know where that hope had come from, but it had come from what I had started to do over those last 6 months. And that was about making it about other people. And so what what these last 8.5 years have been for me, because it's not like I've been out of prison for 20 years, people. It's at 8.5 years right now. I'm about 11 and a half years sober. Somehow I stayed sober in there. Thank you. But I've only been out for 8.5 years. But it's been all about how can I make a difference in someone else's life. And the selfish nature in which I lived and breathed my whole life is such a 180. And don't get me wrong, when you stand in front of 2,400 people and they applaud you, like your ego is involved. My ego is the enemy. It just is. So I've surrounded myself with people who hold me accountable, just period. You don't like to hear it because you feel like you're displaced when you're being asked by a general to come speak at his national mid-year convention. There's something to that. But I have a disease. It will not go away. It needs to be treated constantly. It affects your impulsive nature of your brain. It makes you do things differently than you ever have. 11 and a half years without a substance in my body. My father-in-law visits for about 10 days just a month ago. He's old, he's elderly, he's handicapped. His doctor has prescribed him Norco. I'd never really heard what that was. It's a hydrocodone spinoff. But he talked about it when we were at dinner one night. My brain immediately went, there are pills in the house. 11 and a half years, going to meetings, doing all the things I need to, working with people. My brain is so affected by it that that's what I heard. But luckily I have that accountability group, right? How do you go about things? Do you do it in a drug-seeking behavior habit way, where you slink around the house, maybe see if you can find them? This was so foreign to me in how I work and how I do things. I sat him down with my wife, because my wife knew I needed, something was going on. And we sat down and we asked my father-in-law if we could order a RX safe from Amazon. I mean, this is so foreign for me doing like the next right thing ever. So we ordered it, it came. He put his medication in the safe with him with a key and my wife with a key, and I never thought about it again for the rest of his time there. But this was a month ago. This is an ongoing battle that we're going to have to fight and face our whole lives. And I understand that, and I'm okay with that, and I'm willing to do the hard work. If I put a semblance of the amount of effort I put into drug seeking, into my recovery, I'll be fine. And that's what this has become. I used to think money, power, and prestige was the answer to success. That was the ideal. And it couldn't be the furthest thing from the truth. If there's anything you take away from what I've said today, it's going to be these three things. And the first thing is accountability. I was never accountable to anybody or anything my whole life. It was always about me. When that moment came where I was able to walk by the mirror in my prison cell and look at myself and go, Ryan, you are here because of what you did. Nobody else. That removes everything. I blame the media, coaches, family, my hometown, the NFL, everybody. I just never owned up to what my part was in it. And when you do that, ultimately, you cannot blame anybody. Again, it's the most simplistic version of how to deal with something. What was my part in it? How can I fix it? That's accountability, okay? The second thing was spirituality. There was this joke that Sports Illustrated ran with the year I was headed to the NFL. What's the difference between God and Ryan Leaf? And the punchline is, God doesn't think he's Ryan Leaf. Now, I thought that was hilarious. There is something about walking in front of 100,000 people and going like this and getting a reaction, okay? There's a godlike feeling to it. It's absurd. What I do know now, and what I've been firmly taught because of all of my life experience, is that there is a God and I'm not it. That's as simple as I can break it down for you. There has to be a reason why I'm still here. There are teammates of mine, and there are brothers who played in the NFL with me that had much more impactful careers, were successful, did not, victimize their communities, who are no longer with us because they took their own lives, or they drank themselves to death in a hotel room because the NFL and people who are not in this room don't understand it, and it's still stigmatized about why it goes on, who this person is. And so I have a ton of survivor's guilt around that aspect. Why am I here? Why isn't Junior Seau, who was my teammate, who I think would be much more impactful as a speaker than I ever could be? But he's not, because the stigma exists where he didn't feel like he was comfortable enough to tell somebody as a big, strong football player that I'm really struggling here with what I'm dealing with. Somebody help me. And there's a spirituality to this. The fact that I'm standing in front of a room of 2,400 people rather than sitting in a jail cell or 6 feet under, that is spiritual. The third thing is community. I was never part of a community. I was always on this pedestal growing up. The closest I came to was at Washington State, where all of us were very similar, and we were doing and we were achieving what we wanted to together, but that grew to the highest level too when I was told I was the best football player in the world. And then at my lowest, I didn't have like a drug community. Like, I didn't have a drug dealer. My hometown and doctors were my drug dealers. And so I didn't want anybody to know that. So I was never part of a community. I went to Los Angeles where I got sober. I went to treatment. I started working in sober living in the recovery world. And that community of mine grew. Remember, 2,500 meetings a week in LA, and I planted myself firmly in the middle. I was not going to get picked off. And now I get to travel the country and do things like this and meet amazing people who are willing to sacrifice their time with family, with whatever, to care about others who are dealing with this disease that someone will not believe is a disease. And so I applaud all of you for becoming a part of my community. There will be people I meet today and spend time with that will be in my life for the next 50 years. And that's special. That's spiritual. That's community. Those are the three things that make you a success. And I guarantee it, if you apply those into your life, you will be. I am the walking impersonation of that. But it still doesn't matter. People still want to look at me as those words I started this speech with. They just do. And that's the stigma, and it continues. What the 60s were for civil rights and where we are right now, that may be what it takes for mental illness and substance abuse. I may not be around to see a real change, but what does that do? Do we just stop? Do we just give up? Or do you do exactly what everyone in this room had a choice to do, and that was to show up, to be part of the solution, regardless of what the result may yield? You cannot control that. I tried to control a lot of things my whole life. You cannot control what other people do with your message. You cannot control with what other people do with what you see as the solution. You can only do you. You do what you need to do. You stay out of the result. You lay your head down and you do it again tomorrow. And that might be the closest identifier to what recovery is. People ask me what 5 years looks like from now. I don't know. I could easily be back in prison 5 years from now. My best thinking takes me to a prison cell, people. I don't do it right. I need help. I just do. What I do know is if I do what I did today, tomorrow, I most likely will lay my head down at night and I'll be at peace. My mom always asks me if I'm happy. I hate that. I hate the happy thing. Like, life is life. Life is unfair. It's about how you deal with it that matters, period. And So there are moments where I walk around in just a happy bliss. In fact, I'm a very morning person. My wife hates it. She believes coffee is the only reason why anybody should be happy in the morning. I've never had a cup of coffee in my life. In my sobriety, when I wake up, 6 o'clock or whatever it is, like, boom, I'm out of bed, and she looks at me like I'm insane. And I say, you can choose to start your day the way you want to start it. You can. And all of you had a choice. There's always forks in the road. You can deal with things in a positive and healthy way or a negative and toxic one. You all chose to show up today, be part of the solution, and I applaud you for that because it's the harder of the two. Taking the high road, being about love, respect, understanding, that's hard. In this country, the easy part is being judgmental and fearful and pointing fingers and stuff. That's the easier route. And we watch it play out all the time, and it's why the stigma continues to get dragged along to those who deal with substance abuse and mental health disorders. And so what we need to do, and what CADCA has done, and what General Price has put in front of me, is to stand up here and shine the bat signal around the entire world to showcase that, look at me. If you want to use me as the poster child of what could have been and what wasn't, and it's because of this and that and the other, fine. I can carry that. I've accepted it, I've surrendered to it, and I'm very, very proud of it. This was the hardest thing I've ever done. There have been 27,000 NFL players in the history of the NFL. People would think that's the hardest thing you've ever done. It's not. This is the hardest thing I've ever done. And so therefore, it's imperative that I give back and make it about other people. And so, I'll do it again today. I'll wake up and I'll do it again tomorrow. And each and every one of you, and what I've seen and heard and continue to view, you're going to make a difference in everybody else's lives. And I am so grateful. Never thought I'd be able to say that. I never thought I'd be able to say, having spent 32 months in prison, I'd be grateful for. I don't recommend it, but I'm incredibly grateful for it, as well as I am incredibly grateful to General Price, this organization, CADCA, and for all of you for showing up today and being a part of my recovery. People talk to me all about how I have a hand in saving people's lives. I tell you right now, there's been so many more people that had a hand in saving mine, and today you all have had a hand in saving my life. So thank you very much. God bless you all, and enjoy the rest of the convention.